Welcome to the Peace of Living podcast. We're your hosts, Allison
and Jason.
And we finally did it. We finally made good on that promise to record together.
Finally.
After what, like a month?
It's been a while. Too long, for sure.
It has been. There's a lot of things happening around here lately.
It's been a little crazy.
It's been, yeah, that's a good word for it. Yeah, maybe one of these days we'll fill you in, but not today.
Not today.
Not today. I guess it takes a special occasion for us to come together, and it's because we are 2 days away from celebrating
our 10-year anniversary.
Oh, good. You got the number right.
I got it right.
The test.
I was almost going to say 9. It's 10. Just kidding.
You're not funny. Anyway, so we obviously are feeling really nostalgic right now. I don't know about, I can't speak for Jason, but I've been listening to a lot of 2013 music tracks, taking us back to those days.
Those days.
You know, so long ago.
What songs were there in 2013? I can't.
Well, I mean, Mumford & Sons was really big.
Oh, yeah.
So I've been listening to a lot of, well, not like a lot, but more Mumford than usual.
Okay.
And, you know, Jason and I have a thing. I don't know if we want to call it a guilty pleasure for the Goo Goo Dolls, but
I don't understand why people don't like the Goo Goo
I don't
Dolls.
know either, but for some reason I feel I need to label it as a guilty pleasure. I don't know why. And yeah, just, we even have like a little playlist, you know, that you created.
Probably need to update it.
It's old. For sure we need to update it. Yeah, but it's just fun to look back and be like, "Aw, that's cute." We were so young, so naive. And I would say, correct me if I'm wrong, but I would say we are even happier now than we were in those newlywed days.
I would absolutely agree.
Yeah.
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 Like
good.
Every year, like really just like it really does it just keeps getting better.
Yeah.
I mean it.
Well, and before people stop listening to this because they're nauseated or they're like, gross, you guys are gross. Or if you feel bad too, because I don't know, marriage looks different for everybody. And I trust me when I say that I fully acknowledge how incredibly fortunate I think we both are that we happen to be in a relationship where both of us are 100% committed to each other. Because I mean, at any given time, you could just wake up tomorrow morning and be like, "Hey, by the way, I don't like you anymore." You know, like,
hey,
it sounds awful, but like, do you remember how that used to be a recurring nightmare of mine? This is so sad. I guess life with you is so good that I have to experience opposition in my dreams. This doesn't happen anymore, by the way, but earlier on in our marriage, I actually, until like a few years ago, so it hasn't been that long, I would have like a recurring nightmare of some version of you telling me that you never loved me.
Wow.
And then I would like wake up crying and you would be like, "What's wrong?" And I'm like, "You never loved me." It's so sad. Kind of funny, but also really sad because apparently my subconscious is really mean to me. But I think there was a big part of me that was like, no way do I deserve to be this happy. No, and this can't even be real because I feel like everybody sort of tries to temper your expectations about marriage when you're a single person.
Yeah.
And you hear it from all the married people like, well, marriage is hard and you really have to have low expectations and it's work. You got to make it work.
Yeah. You
and
really got to work at it.
I distinctly remember an institute class that I took in college, you know, when I was a wee lass of 20 years old, which by my family standards was an old maid, not being married. So,
like looking at their watch. Like,
I know. I did have a bet going on with my brother-in-law, Dave, which if you're listening, Dave, I think you still owe me some money. That he bet that I was going to be married by the time I was 20, just like all my sisters were. And I said, no, I'm not. And just to spite him, I wasn't.
That's right. Sorry, fellas.
I know. Sorry about that. Had to win the bet. No. Definitely was not ready to be married in my 20s. But back to that class, that institute class.
Early 20s, yeah.
In my I seriously was barely 20 years old when I took that class, which was preparing for eternal marriage class. I don't know.
That's awesome.
Even saying that out loud makes me chuckle. I don't know why. like I don't know. Isn't that a funny title to you? Preparing for an eternal marriage.
Prepare for it.
Prepare for this. But I'll never forget the lesson so it was an older guy teaching institute, and I won't say his name because I don't want to embarrass anybody, but he was giving like the intro to this class on the first day, and I knew from the get-go, I was like, huh. This is not what I thought, because basically it was kind of like, so you want to get married? What? Like he had a whole PowerPoint and everything with like this illustration of a rocket going into space, and he's like, marriage is like a rocket. In the initial phases, you have so much joy, and you're propelling into the sky at a massive force. I don't remember the exact words, but he was like, he's basically saying like, you're riding this high, but he's like, but eventually a rocket will lose its momentum and begin to fall back toward the earth.
Oh, wow.
I know. And then he's like telling us how he's been married for several decades and how he and his wife have reached that point when the rocket has started
fallen back to earth.
And I was just like, well, this sounds great. Sign me up. And he basically was like, hey, so marriage, it's not a fairy tale. Basically, like, you just kind of get to a point where you mutually tolerate each other for eternity.
Oh, man.
It was like,
wow.
It was not the best class I have ever taken. I'll say that. I'm sure they have improved the curriculum since then. But yeah, I still remember being like, wow, I cannot wait for eternal mutual toleration. That sounds awesome. So I just had this idea that like, okay, marriage is going to be hard and I'll have to brace myself for it, I guess. And can't trust those movies because they lie and the happiness is fake and all that. It was so sad. I had this like jaded perspective at such a young age, but I'm happy to report that none of that has proven to be true. And now, okay, fair. We've only been married for 10 years, so
the rocket
might be losing steam. I don't know. We'll keep you posted.
Oh man, that's
maybe
crazy.
in another 10 years, we'll see where we are.
Nah.
I think it'll keep going though.
Yeah.
We're on a good trajectory.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my hot take for our 10 years is 2 thumbs way up. Love it. And I owe that to you for being pretty darn easy to be married to. So thanks.
Well, and it is,
and to me for being awesome.
That's what I was just going to say. It is to you too. Like I really am grateful for who you were like up until, I mean, I guess we technically met in high school and stuff, but like that's, but like up to the point where we really got to know each other. Like I really am grateful for like who you were and the decisions you'd made that like had like led you to that point. Like you like had lived in such a way where when the time was right, it was like so clearly right. And it like, it was like a beacon was like on you from heaven. And it was cool because like we were like ready when the time was right. Like we were ready, it was cool.
Well, and I remember that too, is the night before we got married. I think my family, we had all gone down to like the church to set stuff up or whatever. And I was riding back home with my dad, and he was like, I don't think I've ever been around somebody who's been so calm when they're just a few hours away from getting married. And it's true. Like, I just remember kind of shrugging, being like, I just know it's the right thing. Like, And that's not to say that if you feel jitters or whatever, that it's the wrong thing. So please don't misinterpret that. But it was just like Jason said, I think we had both been very careful about that decision and very prayerful about it. And yeah, once the answer was there, it was very clearly there. And I will put that at the number one thing that was very clearly communicated from heaven in my life was, this is 100% the right choice to marry this man.
Yeah, I would agree. Like that was, and again, it's different for everybody.
Yes, please don't compare your situation.
Yeah,
to ours.
don't take this big. Oh, unless if it doesn't happen this way, or if it didn't happen this way, then whatever. That's not what we're saying. But I feel the same way. Like when it came to like the decision, and it wasn't even like a decision. It was just like so naturally like right. It was like, well, of course we're doing this.
It just made sense.
It just made total sense. Like it was like the fog had lifted. You could see totally clearly. And I mean, even like the very first night, like when I was made fully aware that you were interested by our mutual friend, Andrea. I'll forever be grateful for her if she's listening. But I felt, and I still feel, and I'm not just saying this, I literally could not have been more shocked had I won the lottery 10 times over. Like it was like, what? And I still feel that way. Like it was just, and I've said that before, but Allie just literally, she literally is my dream girl. Like it's crazy. Like I remember like back when I was, I associate with what car I was driving. That's at the time.
What, you?
I had a 2011 black Subaru WRX and it was so cool. But I remember like I was going to get the oil change the next morning. Anyway, I had a dream that like I was married, like getting married. It was our wedding day and you were like in like a white wedding dress and stuff. And I remember in the dream thinking like, what?
Once again, do not compare your situation.
No. Yeah, this is just
this is not a tactic we recommend.
No. But it was like we were getting like in the dream. It was like our reception or something. And I remember thinking like, whoa, this is so weird. Like we're married and I haven't even kissed her. But it felt like so good and like so right in the dream. And then I called you at the dealership and I told you about the dream.
That was the thing. That was the bold move on your part.
Well, yeah.
One, having the dream, but two, like calling me and telling me about it at 8:30 in the morning.
Well,
it was that early.
I was bold. I am bold. If you know me, I kind of just go for it, bold. Right? But like, which I kind of credit to A, my mom, and B, my mission president. In my exit interview, he was like, Elder Bell, be bold in life. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like, okay. But though, even though that was bold, I don't want to, rehash the whole story, but we were like really good friends.
Oh, for
I wasn't
sure.
like some weirdo from the singles board calling you out of the blue.
Very strange. I'd be like, please don't ever call me again.
Like we were like really great friends at that point.
We were really good friends. And I don't want to like add to make this a controversial thing at all, but you were technically dating someone at the time.
Yes.
When you had this dream.
I remember.
Yes. I remember asking you like, what
Can't control my dreams.
What do you think so-and-so would think about this dream, Jason? What do you think she'd think about it?
I don't know. Okay. I'm just telling you what's happened.
But in all honesty, like, I was feeling pretty good about myself the rest of the day after you called and told me that. Because I was like, his subconscious prefers me. So while your subconscious gives you nice dreams, mine apparently tortures me with dreams about you telling me you never loved me. But that's another thing for the therapist to figure out.
Well, it is kind of cool. Like, I just wanted to comment on that one more thing. Like, and I have to say too, like, I have nothing but the best, like seriously, genuinely the best of feelings toward anybody that I dated. But
yes, please make sure you clear the air. With
I do want to say that. Well, because what I'm about to say is like when we finally got together, like I remember at some point in my dating life, my dad had said, he was like, it seems like you're trying to merge two corporations and not like make a marriage happen. And when he said that, I was like, you're right. Like, it kind of feels like I'm trying to merge two corporations. But like when this happened, you and me, it was you and I, it was just like, it just fell into place. Like, boom, like this is the way I had hoped to always feel. And it finally happened. And it was so cool. It was amazing.
I think I was mostly shocked at just like the ease of it too.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I feel like you can always tell in a relationship when it's like someone is pursuing a little more strongly than the other.
Yeah.
And it's kind of exhausting. And I feel like obviously with you, like there's the only time where it was like click into place. This is the perfect fit right here. And I just remember feeling so safe and secure with you, but not in like a boring way. I don't want to convey that. Like
I'm never boring.
No.
For sure.
No, you're not. You're not boring. No, but like I was genuinely like just happy to be with you and excited about
so
the future.
Natural. Just natural.
It was easy.
Natural
it was
happiness.
easy to be
it was
with
cool.
you. And you also like you brought out my best self. And I think that was a good indication to me that you were the right person to marry, because like I would notice certain tendencies in myself come out when I would be dating certain people that I didn't really like. I didn't like who I let myself become around certain people. Like, you know, sarcasm used to be a big thing for me. It's not with you. I'm not really sarcastic with you, right? I've gotten a lot better. That's just one example. I don't need to catalog all of my faults, but that's one thing that comes to mind. And it's like, just with you, and I do have to mention this because I know a lot of your students will be listening to this podcast and this will crack them up. Oh. Some guys bring flowers and chocolates over to a gal when he's dating her, which you did occasionally. I did get some flowers from you. That's true. But more often than not, Jason, and this was like before we were officially dating. You know what I'm going to say?
Yeah.
Yes, is the cutest thing.
Oh.
Jason would come over to my house with a printed out talk.
Oh,
like, oh, it's so cute.
All my students are cringing so hard right now.
Listen, though, it was it was adorable. Okay, it was like these wouldn't just be like conference talks. They would be like speeches that you found to be uplifting and inspiring, and they were always really good. Like from a genuine place. I appreciated that, and it communicated to me like what was important to you. And it taught me a lot about you in terms of like kind of where you were spiritually and what you were thinking about and what your priorities were.
I never thought about that. Yeah.
Like I remember specifically there was a talk that you brought over to me one time. It was like a year before we got married and we were just good pals. And well, I mean, we talked about everything. We were in pretty close confidence with each other. And I don't remember what was going on at the time, but, you brought over the talk Timing by Dallin H. Oaks.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I forgot about that talk.
I know. Well,
I need to
go back and reread it.
Yeah, anyway,
maybe whoever's listening to
that's a really great talk.
And I remember that really just, it helped me with whatever I was going through at the time. And it was like specific to a need that I had. And I just thought, I don't know. Maybe this just speaks to how nerdy I am. That it's like that's how I knew like this is a good guy, because like this is genuine care being shown here. And you have to know your person, right? So please don't just like show up at someone's doorstep with a printed out talk and expect it to work wonders for you. Like you have to know. Okay.
You want to read this together?
Yeah, that might have an adverse effect.
Like,
so,
who is this guy?
But it worked, and you know what's cool is it was kind of a foreshadowing of what our life together would be like, because like
that's true.
Like so much of our relationship, it all comes down to the gospel of Jesus Christ. Obviously, that's the number one thing that I can attribute our happiness and hesitate to use the word success because it makes it sound like we're gloating, but like, yeah, our marriage success is in thanks to Jesus Christ and his gospel, you know, and we've had lots of opportunities to like serve and teach together and speak and whatnot. And, you know, this podcast obviously is an indication of like what we strive to do and what's important to us. And yeah, it's just cool. It's cool that I got a small glimpse of that, even in the days when we were just friends.
That is cool. Yeah, that's really cool. I haven't really thought like deeply about all those talk conversations, but you're right. Like it really kind of set the stage in a lot of ways.
Well, I remember Marissa. I don't know if you're listening, Marissa, but
hey, Marissa.
One of my best friends, she was over at the house when you showed up with that talk in hand.
I remember.
And I remember she looked at me and I could tell that she was kind of like half amused, but like this is the perfect man for someone like you. You know? So the writing was pretty much on the wall then.
Oh, man.
And I love that. I think I still have that printed somewhere.
I need to reread it. It's been a minute since I've revisited that talk and the other ones that we used to go over.
Yeah.
So I did want to mention, because I know you're probably nauseated at this point, but if this episode is nothing than just like a record for our kids, then so be it.
Yeah.
But
feel free to skip this.
Yeah. If you find this just weird.
If it's too much.
But I'm just going to speak honestly and freely because I really do feel this way. But like being married to Allie, like she had mentioned, it's been almost 10 years. We're just nearly there. And it really has just gotten better. Like every year, every day, like I just like cherish it like so deeply. Like this is my life. And it just like Adam Miller wrote a book called An Early Resurrection. Kind of the idea of like putting, and even like Rainn Wilson has written. Am I ever saying the right word? I'm like losing my mind. He has written about it in his book anyway. But like the idea of just like almost like having, not waiting for heaven, like having a heaven on earth right now. And I genuinely feel that way about being married to Allie, because she's just like, if you know her, obviously she's such like just a wonderful, wonderful woman. And I don't say this at all in a way to like pat myself on the back. There were some things though growing up and in my 20s especially, and even now, that I really feel like, in addition to trying to center my life on Jesus Christ and his teachings and the covenants I've made with him, in addition to that, there has been some like pretty specific teachings and counsel that I feel has helped me and helped me even in our dating days and before we were even dating, like be ready for someone like her, like top tier person like her. And also has helped me kind of, I feel like, still be on her level, or at least close to it, right? Like be the kind of person that like an Allison Brewster, now Belle, would need or would deserve especially. And there were just a couple things. I'm just going to kind of say them rapid fire, but I mean, huge credit to like my mom, like growing up, like I have to give her massive credit, because she just always, from the time I was just a little boy, like, and I have 3 younger sisters. And so I've been surrounded by really great women my whole life. But she always just like trained me and taught me and repeated over and over, like, to be sweet and to just be kind and especially take care of the girls, and like never make them feel bad and don't make them cry and stuff like that. And that like really did stay with me. So huge credit to my mom. Thank
you, Julene.
Yeah, that was doubled down on my mission. Elder Mervyn B. Arnold came out on my mission, and I was a zone leader at that time. And he was like doing, like, he was a general authority 70. And so he was doing like one-on-one personal interviews with the zone leaders. And I'll never forget this, but it actually like really impacted me and like doubled down on my mom's teachings. And we were like in some like just small classroom in a stake center in Maryland. And, you know, I'm sitting there in a chair. He comes in and he pulls a chair over. So we're sitting like knee to knee. And he just sits there and like stares into my eyes. And it was like, this guy was like really intense. And Elder Arnold like changed my life, not only because of what I'm about to say, but just for a lot of different experiences that I had with him then and thereafter, which was awesome. But while we were there, like knee to knee, he's like staring into my soul, and he got like pretty, I don't know, like blunt, bold, even vocally loud, like audibly loud. And he like looks into my eyes, and without even looking away, he goes, Elder Bell, when you get home, you will never use a girl. And then he just paused, and he's like, you promise me right now you won't. And I was like, okay. Yes, and then he told me, and I want you to come back. So first of all, it was, come and see me 3 weeks after you get home. I went and saw him at the church office building, which was an amazing experience. I was with him for like an hour and a half, like in his office, just one-on-one, which was so cool. And in that meeting, he made me re-promise what I had promised on my mission. And then he told me to come back in a year and tell me how it was going. And so that, like, it scared me, like, okay. But it also was like, okay, like this guy, like, I'll always be grateful to him, because I don't know what he saw in me to like take a personal interest. And maybe he was like legitimately like, this guy's going to screw it up as soon as he gets home. No, I don't know.
Not likely.
Maybe not. But like he took that personal interest and he gave me that counsel, and I really did, like, I tried to live by it. Like I just did. And I'm really, really grateful. Like I'm just grateful I did. And that's as much as I'll say about that. But that also leads me to one thing that Elder Hales said years and years ago, where he said, speaking plainly, please don't date all the way through your 20s just to, quote, have a good time, thus delaying marriage in favor of other interests and activities. Why? Because dating and marriage aren't final destinations. And I think that's a mind-blowing to just think about and really realize that even marriage isn't the final destination, like godhood is. So when you're dating someone, like, who is going to be side by side with you along for the ride up to that ascent, right? For godhood. That's the final destination. And that changes the whole game. That changes your whole perspective, I would hope, on who you would even consider dating, right? It's not just to have a good time. It's like, I'm in this to go all the way up the mountain, right? And then he says, they are the gateway to where you ultimately want to go. Therefore, and then he quotes scripture, therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother and shall cleave unto his wife. Your responsibility now is to be worthy of the person you want to marry. And then he says this is such great counsel. If you want to marry a wholesome, attractive, honest, happy, hardworking, spiritual person, which is Allie, he says, be that kind of person. If you are that person and you're not married, be patient. Wait upon the Lord. I testify that the Lord knows your desires and loves you for your faithful devotion to him. He has a plan for you, whether it be in this life or the next. Listen to his spirit. Seek not to counsel the Lord, but to take counsel from his hand. In this life or the next, his promises will be fulfilled. And if you are prepared, you shall not fear. I just love that. If you want to be, especially the part, if you want to marry a wholesome, attractive, honest, happy, hardworking, spiritual person, then be that kind of person.
Yeah. And
I really did. I wasn't obviously very not perfect, especially, teenage years, early 20s, whatever, post mission, all of it. But I really did. That was like, I didn't know it was Allie at the time, obviously, but someone like Allie with all those qualities was what I wanted to be with. And so I was like, well, if that's what I want, then like I should be developing those same things in myself. And like we mentioned, like Allie said, there was a day that it finally just like clicked and fell into place. And it was like, oh my gosh, like there she is. Mm-hmm. And I am so grateful that, again, I wasn't perfect, but that I was almost, not quite, but close to her level.
I think you say close to perfect.
No,
I wasn't quite perfect.
I wasn't.
But
I was close to perfect. No, but like I'm glad that it was like okay, like it said there, if you're prepared, and if you're prepared for the kind of person you want to marry, then you won't fear, because it'll work. And
I don't know if I totally agree with you in putting me up on that pedestal as high as you are. I think that I still kind of believe that heaven may have put some rosy spectacles over your eyes in my regard for my benefit. Thank you, heaven. But for sure, I can speak from my perspective and say the same thing, because I mean, it wasn't like I just looked at you and knew, like, there's my future husband. It was a gradual thing. And like, almost like, this is going to sound so cheesy, but like,
yeah, say it.
I'm just going to go for it. It's almost like my spirit, my like true self at my core was slowly coming out of some type of amnesia.
Yeah.
Because I got little like inklings here and there, like, hey, pay attention to this guy. Like, this is the kind of guy that you've been keeping your eyes out for, and he's right here in front of you. And I remember distinctly that one of the first times that I had that thought was like when we were in the same singles ward after my mission, and you were speaking in church, which I know me speaking in church is what initially like, I guess.
Oh man, the first time I ever heard her speak, I was smitten. Well, like, I just had the biggest crush on her. And what's crazy too,
the Panamanian accent.
Well, it was the missionary accent. No.
And I know,
yeah,
the Book of Mormon is true.
That's right. But it was like immediate. Like obviously she was beautiful, right? But also it was like I could just
minus
tell.
my lack of eyebrows.
Yeah,
sorry.
Remember that trend, everybody?
Oh no, it's so bad.
No, but like I could just tell immediately that she was like that kind of person, like spiritual. She was funny. She was witty. She was smart. It was so evident and clear, even in just how she spoke. But even crazier is like one of the things that like struck me to my core. This sounds so weird, but like was how her voice sounded, and like how Allie's voice, which some of you listening have commented to me on how nice Allie's voice sounds on this podcast. But that was actually one of the very first things that struck me. Anyway, I derailed that whole thing that thought you were going on, but I just have to say, like, yes, like when you got up to speak, it was like, holy cow, it is so clear. Within seconds, it was clear and evident, like what kind of person you were. And it was amazing to see. It was so cool.
Well, I will just say ditto that, because that's like essentially what I was going to say is like, when you got up and spoke in church, I remember like kind of perking up a little bit and looking at you and kind of just having this thought of, this is exactly like what I envision someone I may being butchering this. This is what I envision for someone that I want to marry, is what I'm trying to say. Like the way that you were speaking, how confidently you were delivering it, and like, but how like genuine you were too. That really struck me. And that wasn't the first time that I had the thought like, wow, this is a really great guy. Like I had several thoughts over the course of I guess it was only 2 years that we were in the singles ward together before we got married. I mean, it was, like a year and a half before we were engaged, right?
Yeah,
boy, that seems so short when I put it that way. That's crazy. Because it felt like I knew you for an eternity before that. But
yeah,
we won't rehash our whole courtship story because I know that especially your students have heard that over and over again. They could probably recite it from memory. But you know, basically the long and short of it is that we were really good friends for a long time and really close friends. And then when we finally did like move into that dating phase, and it was a slow process getting there, but once we got there and we were serious, it was like, boom, decision made.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it was so clearly the right thing. So clearly.
It sounds like we got engaged really fast when we talk about like our serious dating, but actually it was a pretty slow drip with a quick finish.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, did that sound weird?
No.
I don't know. I don't know.
No, it was like it was a slow burn.
Slow burn.
It was a slow burn for quite a while.
I just mixed some metaphors there.
That's fine.
Weird.
But it was yeah, well, I mean, and I always cite this research, but so in my undergrad, one of my main like things that I focused on was on relationships and what makes them work and what makes them fall apart. I just like love that stuff. But and you probably have heard of, everybody listening's probably heard of this guy, but there's a famous researcher, probably like the world's leading, like foremost marriage and family, like researcher, John Gottman. His, one of his main claims to fame is that he can, predict. He's met with like thousands and thousands of couples since the 70s, like over 50 years. And he's gotten so good at just watching a couple's interaction that he can predict with like 90% accuracy whether that couple will stay married happily or be divorced within 5 years. And he's like dead on. Like he just can't miss. And of all the things that he looks for, of like his research really over 50 years has boiled down to like one major like principle that he has found is more likely to lead to a happy, lasting marriage than any other thing, any other trait. And it's friendship. Friendship is like the number one thing. And having like lived that and living it right now, like I can 100% back up those findings, because even like leading up to, like we got engaged like really fast, and like it just kind of, came to like very quickly, but came together very quickly. But it was that year and a half of like very slow burn of just that friendship building. And Allie had truly become like one of my best friends. Like, and it was like God was like so good at like working things like behind the scenes there with our relationship. And that has carried through the last 10 years in like really, really beautiful ways. Like, I mean, I'm obviously very attracted and everything to Allie, but she is like 100% like just my best friend. And you think of like who Jesus is in his relationships, like just the other day we were talking as a faculty about like, working with students and stuff. And we were using the story of Jesus, of Jesus coming to the disciples on the boat during the storm, and just how like he just approaches them. And when Jesus comes into their lives, he just like calms the storm. He just calms the storm. And like we were talking about that in like the context of like approaching kids who, couldn't get off their cell phones. The temptation there is to like get really angry and be like, why are you on your phone? And like take it personally, like you don't like my lesson, blah, blah, blah. But it was like, let's just calm the storm. Maybe they're on their phone because they're anxious about something. They're worried about something. Or maybe they just straight up are addicted and they can't help it, like be the teacher that calms the storm. But that's like what Allie does. And I feel like that's what a great friend does. That's what Jesus would do. Like my presence, I would hope, will just calm the storm in Allie's life and in our children's lives, especially, and hopefully my students too, but like, especially my family. Right. And I remember that actually brings to mind another, not to like take this back, but just this comes to mind on my mission. Actually, President Nelson came to one of our stake conferences, and this was way before he was like the prophet, but obviously he's Quorum of the 12. But I remember one of the things that he said in that talk, gosh, it was so cool. But one of the things he said, like pieces of counsel, was to the brethren. And he was like, brethren, like when you get home after a long day's work or whatever, do not go inside your house until you're ready to be a blessing for your family. And I feel like Allie does that. Like, it's just calm the storm. Right. And it's like we've talked about previously too, like the with our friend Dawn and the peaceful life and the bird in the hand. Like Allie has never been the one to like squish me, the bird in her hand, and like, no, you know, like just, it's never been that. It's never been like this constricting thing. It's always been just come and like sit and be safe and be comfortable. And like, and she has like Allie's correction when she has given it to me has been loving, but it's also cut just enough where it hasn't inspired like change that needed to happen, and like repentance that like needed to happen. And that one time she did that, it really made a difference. But it's because like of that nurturing like relation, that friendship that we have, that like that counsel when given is like so effective, and it's so simple, and then it's done and it's over, but like it sticks. Because like when someone like Allie, as like a friend and as like just a person that I have the honor to be married to, says something, it's like you listen, especially if you're married to her, right? Like I want to know what she has to say, because I know what kind of like godlike woman she is. And so I know she's inspired to like help me too in that marriage and that companionship, that relationship that we have. Anyway, I don't even know what I'm saying anymore.
I don't know how I follow that, honestly. Thank you. You're being way too kind to me and glossing over so many things of my flaws that you could focus on, but choose not to. So thank you for that. It just made me think about, not to keep like going back to our pre-married days, but like, again, I'm just thinking about all of the listeners who are young and single, particularly your students who are tuning into this, who are kind of in the throes of this right now, of trying to find that companion, you know? And I just remember like kind of the point where I knew that there was no turning back for me was when it was January of 2013, and we were not yet engaged or even like seriously dating. We had hung out a lot around that time. And again, like unbeknownst to me, you were dating somebody, but I didn't know that. But that's another story. Minor
subplot. Well, we were in the same friend group and everything.
No, it was all on the up and up. I mean, it was just all
it was nothing like crazy. No. It was just like we were in the same friend group, the YSA ward. Like
we just happened to cross paths a lot
in meetings all the time together.
We talked a lot to each other,
and we got along great.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah. But like, I kind of knew that my defenses were starting to wear down toward you, because I had told myself for so long, no, Jason is just friends with everyone, and especially with the girls. Like all the girls love Jason because he's just friendly, and he treats women nicely, which, you know, earns him a lot of points with women. So I never dared dream that there was anything special about like our bond, because I was just like, well, that's just how he is. But like, I knew that the more time I spent with you, the more I was like, oh shoot, like I really like this guy a lot. And like, you are the person that I want to talk to about things. And when I knew that the game was over was, oh gosh, was this the last date I went on before we started dating seriously? It might have been, I don't know. Anyway, our good friend Leanne, she had set me up on this blind date with a friend of hers. Well, she showed me his picture, actually. Is it still a blind date if you see the picture?
Yeah.
Okay.
You never met him.
I don't remember the rules. Yeah. Anyway, he was like, I'm ashamed to admit this, but I like, and Jason will roll his eyes when I say this, but I was a little vain in my attraction to strictly 6 foot and taller guys. I know.
Which is not dumb. Me. If you
Jason is 5'9".
Blonde hair,
feet of perfection.
Blue eyes. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, and I definitely had a thing for like the tall, dark, and handsome types, which whatever.
Which I actually
if you like that kind of thing.
I actually knew, and so that kind of like in my mind, I was like, she's never gonna like me anyway because I am not.
I'm too short and
what
too
she's
blonde.
Looking for exactly.
Yeah. Well,
Ripped, though.
yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Okay, can't get into that right now. Anyway, she set me up on this date, and this guy was very attractive, like super handsome guy. And I was excited for this date. And I met him down in Provo. We went mini golfing, and it was about like 10 minutes into the date that I realized we had nothing in common.
Oh,
and
no.
I was so bored. And I felt
no.
awful. I felt awful because I was like, oh, shoot. I'm like, okay, you're a nice person. And this is another reason why I knew that this wasn't going anywhere, is because like typically, if I like someone, then I'm more nervous like on a date, and I don't do as well in a game like miniature golf because I'm like nervous around this person I like. I got several holes in one.
You destroyed him.
I did, which did not help things. I don't think that helped his ego at all that night. I'm so sorry. But like, I think it was pretty clear to both of us, like there was nothing there. But I distinctly remember before I left Provo that night, I was filling up my car at the gas station. And I grabbed my phone and I sent a text message to Jason. And all it said was, in all capital letters,
I will never forget this.
Jason.
It was late at night.
It was.
I will never forget that text.
I know, because I was the first person I thought of at the end of this not awesome date was you. And that's what I was like, yeah. I know who I want to talk to, and I know who I want to be with. And like, the game's over for me. Like, I got the tall, dark, and handsome thing out of my system. And I was like, it doesn't matter. Moving on. This is what I really want. And anyway, it was not totally a straight path from there, but long story short, we were engaged in May of that year. So a few months later. So
it was so clearly just the right thing. It was so obvious.
Yeah.
Like there's no way I couldn't get married to you and go through with it. It was just so obvious from God. Yeah. Well, and what you just said, like, reminded me, actually, I think this is from one of the talks that I brought over to you one time, but this has always reminded me of you. It was something that Orson F. Whitney wrote a long time ago that Truman Madsen quoted in his talk on how we know at BYU. And I have to just share this because this just describes how I felt and I still feel, but especially when like we were getting to know each other. And Orson F. Whitney said, "Why are we drawn towards certain persons and they to us as if we had always known each other?" Do you remember this?
Yes, I do. Yes. Oh my goodness.
This is the one I think where Marissa was there.
Was it this? I thought it was the timing.
I don't know.
Anyway.
Is it a fact that we always have? Is there something, after all, in that much abused term, affinity? At all events, it is just as logical to look back upon fond associations as it is to look forward to them. We believe that ties formed in this life will be continued in the life to come. Then why not believe that we had similar ties before we came into this world, and that some of them, at least, have been resumed in this state of existence? After meeting someone whom I had never met before on earth, I have wondered why that person's face seemed so familiar. More than once, upon hearing a noble sentiment expressed, though unable to recall that I'd ever heard it until then, I had found myself in sympathy with it, was thrilled by it, and felt as if I had always known it. The same is true of some strains of music, some perhaps heard today. They are like echoes of eternity. I do not assert pre-acquaintance in all such cases, but as one thought suggests another, these queries arise in the mind. When it comes to the gospel, I feel more positive. Why did the Savior say, "My sheep know my voice"? Did a sheep ever know the voice of its shepherd if it had never heard that voice before? They who love the truth and to whom it most strongly appeals Were they not acquainted with it in a previous life? I think so. I believe we knew the gospel before we came here, and that is what gives it a familiar sound. I love that whole beautiful excerpt there from that writing, but I especially love how he said that when he had heard a noble sentiment expressed or met someone that he hadn't even met before, but he just, after meeting them or hearing it, that he found himself in sympathy with it, was thrilled by it, and was felt as if I had always known it. And I'm not saying that I maybe knew Allie before. We don't know exactly how, but like, I just, man, right from that first moment of hearing you speak in church all those years ago, it was like, it just like resonated with me. It was like just right on my frequency. Right. And it was just beautiful. I loved that. Like, we're just naturally drawn to people. And that could be partly why maybe we knew them before, maybe not, but, I just am grateful. I'm grateful that someone like Allie is on that frequency. So
see, and I would say marry somebody who talks about you the way Jason's talked about me, because obviously that's how he's chosen to view me. And I will always be grateful to him for.
I'm just saying what's true.
Well, if you wanted to, you could focus on my shortcomings, and you don't. And I'm grateful to you for that, because, I mean, you're just, like I said, like you make marriage really easy. You're very easy to be married to because you're very good at that Christ-like love that we're aspiring to. You know, I think you willingly overlook the not so great things and focus on the good. And that is a strength of yours. So thank you. 'Cause you do bring out the best. And like I said before, like I still do feel like I am my best self around you. And that's because like you help make that possible. You help bring that about. So, and I do need to mention this talk because again, oh man, you guys, Jason, yes, he would bring physical copies of talks to me before we were dating. But then one
I took it to the next level.
No, that was when the iPod Touch was first a thing. Now, do they even make the iPod Touch anymore? It's become obsolete because of iPhones. But he very generously, because I was... Again, there's so much more backstory to this. It's a wild story. But like I was headed to Africa for a month, like right after we got engaged. And so we weren't going to see each other and you were going to Hawaii.
This just speaks to, she's going to Africa to teach English, and I'm headed to Hawaii for 2 weeks with my buddies.
Yeah. And so we weren't going to see each other for like 4 or 5 weeks. And so Jason got me this iPod Touch that he loaded with a bunch of like music and some of his favorite videos and stuff, but he also put a ton of like conference talks and BYU speeches.
Wow.
But I can see again a foreshadowing of like what our life together would be like, because that meant everything to me to be in Africa. And like, I didn't get a chance to go to church while I was there. I was not near a church building. So the only access that I had to anything spiritual was that little iPod and I listened to those talks quite literally religiously, because I listened to them every day. And like when I would fall asleep at night, and they just brought so much comfort. And I particularly, that's when I really, truly grew to love Elder Holland a ton, because I would listen to his talks. You had a lot of his talks on there because I know he speaks to you as he does to many. And my all-time favorite, I'm pretty sure this is my all-time favorite Elder Holland talk. And it was a BYU speech that he gave back in, I want to say 2000, 2001, 2000. The early 2000s at BYU, called How Do I Love Thee? And if you don't remember anything else from this podcast, and if you've listened this far, bless you, thank you. But please remember this. Please go and do yourself a favor and listen to that talk. Whether you are single or dating or you've been married for several years, it is such a wonderful talk about love and the kind of love that we should all be pursuing. And I told Jason, I was like, I kind of just want to like read the whole talk to everybody on this, and I won't. But in thinking about, you know, those single days or even the married days, when you start to get like down on yourself and thinking of all the things that you lack, like I should be more this, I should have more talent in this regard, blah, 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 blah. Like, it's so easy to see what we lack, especially these days with social media and comparisons being so easy. I loved what Elder Holland said in his talk kind of about the things that we can control in the face of the things we can't. And he says, there are lots of limitations in all of us that we hope our sweethearts will overlook. I suppose no one is as handsome or as beautiful as he or she wishes, or as brilliant in school, or as witty in speech, or as wealthy as we would like. But in a world of varied talents and fortunes that we can't always command, I think that makes even more attractive the qualities we can command. Such qualities as thoughtfulness, patience, a kind word, and true delight in the accomplishment of another. These cost us nothing, and they can mean everything to the one who receives them. And that is money right there, because we put so much emphasis on like accomplishments and talents and whether or not someone is hot, right? Like don't get me wrong, physical attraction I think is important. You should be attracted to the person that you're married, but as evidenced by my whole thing for the tall, dark, and handsome types, like, it's not everything. It's really not everything. Because I will tell you right now, I 5'9", blonde, blue-eyed is my thing. I am most attracted to that, and 100% honest. like that's, you are who I am attracted to, you know? And like, it's kind of funny because now I look at tall people and I'm like, wow, it's like too much height.
Too big.
You're too big. It's like a waist. Just kidding. No, sorry. I just offended so many people who are listening to this. No, but like, I just love that we do need to emphasize and pay more attention to the things that people can control, because I have to read this other quote that kind of goes along with it too. Elder Holland goes on to say later in his talk, in a dating and courtship relationship, I would not have you spend 5 minutes with someone who belittles you, who is constantly critical of you, who is cruel at your expense, and may even call it humor. Life is tough enough without having the person who is supposed to love you leading the assault on your self-esteem, your sense of dignity, your confidence, and your joy. In this person's care, you deserve to feel physically safe and emotionally secure. Please pay attention to that. If you don't feel physically safe or emotionally secure, or if you feel at all belittled by somebody, even jokingly, I would pay close attention to that, because, I mean, like Elder Holland said, this is the person that you should feel the most safe and at ease with. And so, and again, that was one of the things that attracted me most to you, was just these qualities of yours that, like, they just made it so evident what a good guy you were. Like, truly, just little things that you would do. Like, I got to tell this cute little story because, again, like, Jason, he's adorable. This again was like before we were dating. We were just good friends, and I can't tell the full story, but like, I was having my last day of work at a job that I did not like.
That's right.
And we'll just leave it at that. And to make this transition easier for me, I remember going out my front door at my parents' house on the morning of my last day, and I saw something behind the tire of my car. And I went and I looked, and it was a pack of Dr. Pepper. And because at the time I loved Dr. Pepper, and a note attached to it, basically like telling me like, good luck with my last day. Yeah. And it was not signed by anybody. It was an anonymous thing. But it took me a second, and I was like, oh, I know who did this. And so I remember I texted you, but I thought like, wow, what a classy, cool thing to do. Like, what a thoughtful thing for this guy to come and like leave this drink I love anonymously on this day. Anyway,
I remember going and buying that Dr. Pepper. Yeah, I remember that.
I haven't even what motivated you to do that?
I don't know.
Because we weren't dating or anything. It was just like.
Again, I think a lot of it just goes to my mom. She's, as you know, the most thoughtful person in the world.
There is nobody more thoughtful
and
than
that
your mom.
has rubbed off. That has rubbed off. And I thought she's having the last day, of her work, and like it was an opportunity to. There was a little bit of like a joke there with the note. I remember that was relevant to your experience of that work. And so I thought it was just a nice way to kind of bring a smile to your face on a day that you were glad was there, but also like an experience that had been kind of mixed. So
yes. Well, mission accomplished. Yeah. It was just, it was great. And, oh man, there's so much more I want to share. I'll just share one more thing from Elder Holland's talk, because it'll transition nicely into my final point, which is kind of just more specific ways of how Jason has really just been a really great husband. And so Elder Holland says in his advice to married couples or dating couples, he says, think the best of each other, especially of those you say you love. Assume the good and doubt the bad. Encourage in yourself what Abraham Lincoln called the better angels of our nature. You want capability, safety, and security in dating and romance, in married life and eternity? Be a true disciple of Jesus. Be a genuine, committed, word and deed Latter-day Saint. Believe that your faith has everything to do with your romance, because it does. You separate dating from discipleship at your peril. Or, to phrase that more positively, Jesus Christ, the light of the world, is the only lamp by which you can successfully see the path of love and happiness for you and for your sweetheart. How should I love thee? As he does, for that way never faileth. And that describes Jason. And I remember listening to this talk. I listened to this talk several times when we were engaged, because I was so touched by it. And also like, I knew that I could see you in this. And that's the cool thing, is now 10 years later, it's more true than ever, because like, again, you've only gotten better. And,
hope so.
And that's not to say, I mean, obviously we're human. We have our human moments, and not everything has been easy, but I will say I've never once thought that marriage is hard. I've never thought that. And I'm so grateful for that, because that's because of you. You've made it easy.
It's both of us. It's us, and it's Jesus. It's our covenant that we made.
I will concede. It was a joint effort, mostly led by you. But I was just trying to think of like specific ways that Jason has shown Christ-like love over these last 10 years. And I hope you know this is not an exhaustive list by any means, but I think it should give a pretty decent glimpse really into like why the last 10 years has been so great. And the first thing I thought of, kind of goes along with what Elder Holland was saying. Jason never, ever criticizes me. Ever. Like, I can't think of a single time that you have ever, said anything to me about, like, well, you always do this, or why can't you do that? Like, never. Or we've had discussions about things, like, before, that if something is bothering either one of us, but you've never taken an assaulting tone. In fact, it's rare that you ever even take a tone with me at all. And Jason knows that if he does, I'm pretty quick to give him a sharp look. Like, so yeah,
Yeah,
like,
I know.
Yeah, it's, but that is rare. That's very rare. And then like on the positive side of that, not only do you not like criticize me, which should just be like a given for anybody. Like, don't do that. That's not something that your spouse or your partner or whoever needs. You take that to the positive end, where every single day, you express your love in some way. And like, you always, every single day, tell me that you love me. But like, and then this is cute, but like, Jason is still to this day super flirtatious with me.
Can't help it.
I know,
it's like the movie Coda. You seen your mom? She's so hot.
Yes, exactly like that. Oh man, no, but like it's just sweet because it's good to like feel just loved and wanted and like valued every day, and you're very good at expressing that. So thank you. And
this is really nice.
Yeah, well, and then of course there's just like the small acts of service, as I kind of indicated with the whole Dr. Pepper story and the bringing me talks thing, which is so cute. He's just always had a talent for thoughtful gestures. Whether that's like surprising me with Nilsson's concrete at the end of a hard day, or so, like when he knows I've had a hard day and I could just use a little lift, I can pretty much expect that a cookie dough with malt concrete is on its way, you know? And I love that. And another little thing, this is so little, but it's so sweet because it's like this daily small gesture. Like he pretty much always ensures that I have a water bottle every night when we go to bed. And like he'll like toss a water on the bed at night right by me. It's just like this little thing, but it's like keeping me hydrated. That's a big thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just a sweet little daily gesture. And then like a big little thing is that every single day there's some type of text or call. I love that, like 9 times out of 10, Jason calls me as soon as he's in the car on the way home from work. And sometimes that backfires because I've just managed to fall asleep for a nap or something because I got married down for a nap. And then I'm like, hello?
Did I wake you up?
No, I've been awake the whole time. But like, it makes me feel good. Like that he's so excited that he like, I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry. Like you can't even wait like 20 minutes on this commute to talk to me. You have to call me right away. And it's just so sweet because like you could be doing anything with that time. You could listen to music. You could listen to your favorite car show podcasts and whatnot. And you with all the time that you already give me, just keep giving me more. And that's just, I love that. And I always look forward to it. And I always will. And then like the last thing, well, not like the last thing. This is the only other thing he does. No, but just the last thing for now that I have on my list, because it's been especially pertinent lately. Jason is and always has been a master at listening and showing empathy. And you've been that way ever since before we were dating and we were just friends. And the countless times that I would just, be in the car with you or on the couch or whatever and just talk to you about my life and what was going on. And you were so good at just listening and just validating feelings and offering support and encouragement where it was needed. But most of all, like, dang it. I was doing okay. You want to talk about Christ-like attributes? Like, you're very good at just sitting with me in my pain or my difficult times. And there have been some hard times. Not your fault. I'm happy to say. But life happens to all of us, you know, and I'm just grateful that, you're going to have to cut out a lot of this because I'm just crying and blubbering, but I am just grateful that I have someone by my side and just making it as easy as possible. Because I think that's the ultimate goal with marriage, is that we're supposed to give our significant others a taste of what it might be like to just have Jesus with us all the time. And you are so good at that. You're so good at that. Like, again, I know this is going to sound cheesy, but like, I do almost feel like, I feel like when Jesus comes again, I'll be so happy, and I will like obviously love to see him and give him a hug and fall down at his feet and all of that. But like, you are the person that I want to be with for eternity, and that's going to stay that way. And you've already given me a taste of like what that feels like to be so well loved, and it's just, it's a joy being married to you. And I'll just throw this in there because I know I took this down a serious path, but a very key, important ingredient to all this too, as you've probably noticed from our different podcasts episode here, the episodes that we've recorded, like, we laugh a lot.
Yeah.
We don't take ourselves too seriously, and that is super important. That just have fun. We have a lot of fun together.
We do.
And I think that's important. And yeah, I just am really happy, and I'm excited to see what happens for us in the next 10 years. I'm sure a lot of things will happen, and some will be great and some will be not so great. And I'm not scared of those times, because as long as I got you, it's going to be fine.
Yeah. Wow, babe. Well, it was so nice and so kind of you to say all those things. And I mean, I could say a lot of the same things right back to you. I do want to mention specifically 2 things, and then we'll kind of close it out. Actually,
I mentioned like 5, but that's okay. Well,
I got to mention 3 things in a roundabout way. They're not going to be like specific, but you'll see what I mean. So in that same talk that from Elder Holland, that Allie mentioned, there's just a sentence from it that I have to, because this is just, if you know Allie, this is so true. And he says, there are many qualities you will want to look for in a friend or a serious date, to say nothing of a spouse and eternal companion. But surely among the very first and most basic of those qualities will be those of care and sensitivity toward others. A minimum of self-centeredness that allows compassion and courtesy to be evident. And then he quotes Mr. William Wordsworth, and he says that best portion of a good man's life is his kindness. And we were watching a movie recently where a dad was giving a speech at his son's wedding, and that line's always stuck with me. And then where he says, just marry someone who is kind. And that's Allie. She's never picked on me or like clenched the fist at all. It's always just been a very safe, comforting place to be with her, and her kindness towards me and to the world in general it's like really humbling to witness. And it's hopefully is rubbed off a little bit on me when maybe I've been too critical or too whatever of whatever it is. Her kindness, that's just beautiful. And I'd hope that anybody listening would be married to someone who's kind, but if you're not married yet, you got to find someone who's just kind. Someone who's kind. One more thing that I have to mention that has left an impact on me, and this is actually like a recent bit of counsel that I wanted to pass on in case we've forgotten it, but it's from President Nelson in his "We Need to Do Better and Be Better" talk from just a few years ago. And he said this. He says, "Brethren," and I hope that especially the men listening to this can hear it. "Brethren, your first and foremost duty as a bearer of the priesthood is to love and care for your wife. Become one with her. Be her partner. Make it easy for her to want to be yours. No other interest in life should take priority over building an eternal relationship with her. Nothing on TV, a mobile device, or a computer is more important than her well-being. Take an inventory of how you spend your time and where you devote your energy. That will tell you where your heart is. Pray to have your heart attuned to your wife's heart, and seek to bring her joy. Seek her counsel and listen. Her input will improve your output." And I mentioned that earlier, but that is, all of that is so true. Like, and I've strived to like to put her as her specifically, like, even, and it's not that I don't love our kids, I love our kids so much, but he does not say your family is the priority. He specifically says your wife. And even going back to an interview that President McKay did decades ago, someone asked him, like, what is the Lord going to be most interested in when he eventually talks in person with each of us and we account for our lives? And President McKay backed that up to what President Nelson just said and said, you want to know what the Lord's going to first ask you about? The first thing he's going to ask you about is about your relationship with your spouse. Did you love them completely? Were they the priority? And I will just say, like, it's a joy. Like, I really do. Like, I find great joy in like putting like Allie as the priority. How can I just make her life better? How can I just make her enrich her life? Like, and just deepen it and just make it something just full, and whole. And that is really a fun endeavor for me to go on. Like, I genuinely enjoy it. And it's been fun to try to bring her some joy over these last 10 years. And it's true that her counsel has really made a difference. I remember just an experience just not too long ago where after church I was complaining and Allie just simply said, she's just said, you need to be more patient with people. And that's all she said. And it was like, yeah, it really cut.
Kind of the pot calling the kettle black in that scenario.
No, it wasn't though. And you are more patient and kind in general. And I think women in general, but especially you carry those traits. But those are the traits of Jesus. And why do we emphasize marriage so much in our church? I know a big part of it is because for us to become like our heavenly parents, remember, marriage even itself isn't the destination. Godhood is. We need each other, men and women, like Paul talks about in Corinthians. Neither is the man without the woman or the woman without the man the Lord. Like, we need each other to become like them. And Allie, obviously, her traits are so Christ-like. Like, it's like a true honor to be along with her in this ride, and to become more and to understand and become closer to Jesus and our heavenly parents. One final thing I want to mention, and this is from Isaiah, actually, Isaiah chapter 22. You kind of have to dig into the symbolism a little bit here, but I just want to read it so that those listening know that I'm not saying anything I shouldn't be saying. But in Isaiah chapter 22, starting in verse 20, it says this, "And it shall come to pass in that day that I will call my servant Eliakim, the son of Hilkiah." And Eliakim is kind of a symbol for Jesus. "And I will clothe him with thy robe, and strengthen him with thy girdle, and I will commit thy government into his hand." So this is obviously talking about Jesus, right? Not just Eliakim. "And he shall be a father to the inhabitants of Jerusalem and to the house of Judah. And the key of the house of David will I lay upon his shoulder. So he shall open, and none shall shut, and he shall shut, none shall open. And then this, it's beautiful. And I will fasten him as a nail in a sure place. And he shall be for a glorious throne to his father's house. And they shall hang upon him all the glory of his father's house, the offspring and the issue, all vessels of small quantity, from the vessels of cups, even to all the vessels of flagons. In that day, saith the Lord of hosts, shall the nail that is fastened in the sure place be removed, and be cut down, and fall. And the burden that was upon it shall be cut off, for the Lord hath spoken it. Now, I don't want to go too deep into this, but especially if you've been to the temple, you know what this is referring to. And I just have to say that, yes, Jesus is, as it says in Isaiah chapter 22, for me, has fastened himself to a cross as a nail in a sure place. Where, like in some cultures around the world, in their houses, they will literally hang everything in their house on nails. Their cups, their pots, their pans, their clothes, like everything is just hung on nails throughout the house, like on these, great pieces of timber or whatever. Jesus is that nail in a sure place. Like, I know that it's a sure place I can hang my life on, right? My hopes and my dreams. But if you've been to the temple, you know that it's not only Jesus. That nail in a sure place is also your spouse. And Allie is, for me, someone that I know I can hang everything on. And my kids, it's so cool to see Finn and Mary. They know they can hang everything on Allie. And it reminds me of the song, O Little Town of Bethlehem. The hopes and fears of all the years are with thee tonight. Hang on thee tonight. And to me, that's Allie. And that's marriage in general. And that is love. Let us, like Jesus, be a nail in a sure place, like it talks about in Isaiah, where we in a marriage can hang our hopes, our fears of all the years, hang them on each other. I would hope that Allie could feel like she could just hang anything on me, and I'm going to hold it, and I'm going to be there. I'd hope that my kids feel that way too. But that's Allie. I mean, ultimately, Jesus is that nail in a sure place through his atonement. And Allie is that way too. And it's been such an honor these last 10 years to hang my life, to leave the life I had lived under my parents' roof and start a new one, almost to be reborn in a sense, in that new everlasting covenant of marriage, and hang all of my life on Allie and on Jesus, obviously. And I have no regrets. And it's been far more, I always had high hopes and ideals for marriage, but it's been far more beautiful and enriching than I even could have imagined. It's amazing. And yeah, I call you because the second I get on the road, because I can't wait. I can't wait. This is heaven. This is heaven on earth. And I gotta just get into it as soon as I can. And just hearing your voice, even from day one, has been a source of comfort. And it's been just a source of love and just a source of Christ. And, I'm so blessed that I get to hear it every single day.
Okay. Now that I've lost my voice. That's a nice way to... I'm so glad I get to hear your voice every day. Okay. Okay. Yes, you are. Oh, lucky you. Lucky man. Thank you so much to everybody who stuck it out and listened to us this whole time, because I guess it was a little bit self-serving for us to go back and to revisit.
Yeah, for sure.
Some things of the past 10 years. And I hope our kids will listen to this someday and know just how much their parents love each other. And I honestly hope so much that our kids get to experience this for themselves someday. Yeah. That would be my greatest hope. But anyway, happy almost 10 years. Just another
10 years.
30 hours and we're there. And we're looking forward to what's to come. I think the best is still coming.
It's always yet to come.
That's right.
Yeah, it just
in the words
keeps
of Frank
better.
Sinatra.
That's right.
Anyway, we love you all. Thank you so much for being here with us. We look forward to talking with you again next week.